Yay! It's Security Weekly News. I'm Doug White, and it is episode 431. It is Friday, the 15th of November. The year's just flying by. Welcome to the show. We've got Granny Bots, Microsoft, Shrinklocker, SlugResin, BlueSky, Aaran Leyland, and more on this edition of the Security Weekly News.
This is a Security Weekly production for security professionals by security professionals. Please visit securityweekly.com/subscribe to subscribe to all the shows on our network.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
It's the show that keeps you up to date on the latest security news twice a week. Your trusted source for accurate security information and expert analysis. It's time for the Security Weekly News. ThreatLocker implements a least privileged approach to cybersecurity, blocking every executable unless specifically authorized by your team. This methodology mitigates ransomware, supply chain attacks, zero-day exploits, and ensures 24/7, 365 and a quarter protection for your organization. To learn more about how ThreatLocker can help prevent known and unknown threats in your digital environment, safeguard your data and operations from threat actors, and align your organization with respected compliance frameworks, visit securityweekly.com/threatlocker. All right, from the island of Elba, it's the Security Weekly News. I'm Doug White. Hit that like and subscribe button and leave a comment, or I'm going to be living in a van down by the river. I mean, that's what's going to happen. You'll see. But okay. I put this story up because I have actually never been an early adopter. I want to be, but I understand the idea, and you want to be the person who gets it, before everybody else has it. But I always avoided it unless I had to. I used to tell students to take a year off from video games, like just do something else, and then you could live 1 year behind. You know how the new version of Schloopnagel 24 is just coming out and it's priced crazily, and then people pre-order it, and then it has all these problems, and then there's all these memes about how bad Schloopnagel 24 is, and you should really try Schloopnagel Classic because they have the same, because it's free on Steam. I mean, I've seen that so many times about all sorts of different things, and I learned my lesson about pre-orders long, long ago because there was a game coming out, and I pre-ordered it stupidly. And I got an empty box with a note in it that said, "We want this to be the best experience possible. So unfortunately, it wasn't ready when we said it would be, but we sent you the box anyway." And then they actually never released it, and then we never got our money back. And yeah, it was one of those. But anyway, I got the same philosophy about operating systems. I'm not Lou, and still running Windows 98 because the free Fortran compiler I got him still works there just fine, and doesn't want to pay the $1.99 for that other Fortran compiler that would run on the new one. But I like to wait a while. So Windows Server 2025 came out, and apparently it's got some problems. Imagine that. But they got blue screens of death. There's other issues. The install process apparently can hang, and the server boot and restarts can take more than 3 hours. Uh, classic. I've been watching this install screen for 3.5 hours, and I'm actually considered eating some of that sushi that may have been in the company fridge for a while, and it looks like it was bought at an Aral station down on Franzusstrasse. But it's Saturday night. I'm hungry, and I'm going to be sitting here for a while, and then the whole thing blue screens. It's like the old countdown timer, like almost ready. Hang in there. We're almost done, and then boom, blue screen of death. And it's like, yeah, good times. Well, Microsoft says the issues are not consistently triggered, so you never know. Yours might install. They did say that, and I was very confused by this whole commentary because they said you can Control-Shift-Escape and open the task manager and see if the performance tab shows over 256 logical processors. I'm like, I can't do that if it's stuck on the install screen or if it's blue screening. But I guess that's a way to know if you're susceptible to this, assuming it installed at all. So they did release an update on the 12th, and they said you should install that if you can. Although if the install's hanging, I'm not sure how you install the update to the install. Yeah, you know what I mean. But they did say it was possible, if you're having these problems, to limit logical processors to less than 256. And they do have a whole methodology. It involves a registry. It's pretty complicated. But they did have all that in this article that I attached. They did not tell you what to do if you're waiting for it to boot for 3.5 hours and really starting to seriously think about that sushi at 3 a.m. It was a bad idea. And then there was that whole thing with the flight, the flight back to New York the next day. Yeah, that thing. Okay. Anyway, there's full instruction in the link, so check that one out. Along the same lines, Microsoft issued a patch for Exchange that had to be paused. Always love that. The November 2024 security updates for Microsoft Exchange Server, which was primarily for on-premises and hybrid email servers, because the purely cloud-based Exchange is patched by them, and I guess they take care of it. But the ones on premises had some issues. And what they said was they'd sent this missive out saying you must install these patches immediately, and then they paused them and pulled them from being available. That was on the 14th. And on the 14th, Microsoft said that customers with their own transport or data loss protection rules found that the rules were stopping periodically after the update was installed. Ooh. Then they said they were pausing the rollout temporarily. So in the worst cases that they documented, email just stops altogether. But they also said it could just be a subset of users. It seemed to be something to do with all the different rules you have for filtering email and so forth. They did say that customers who might not use transport or DLP rules and did not have an issue with the rules should go ahead and install the update, and it should be fine. There was a lot of that, should be and might, and probably it won't explode, but we take no responsibility. But you ever have one of those days where email was down and the CEO kept calling about every 10 minutes and saying, hey, are you going to fix this, or I didn't get someone down there who knows what they're actually doing? No, me neither. Yeah, never had that day. And yet another Windows story. A Windows 0 day is being exploited by Russian attackers and is triggered. And I thought this was really interesting. It's triggered not by you double clicking something, but with almost any contact with this file. So if you drag and drop it, if you delete it, if you even just click on it, just single click. And now it's only a medium severity flaw in the MSHTM engine. I'm not sure why it's only medium, but it sounds kind of interesting. So MSHTIM is part of the engine that's used by Edge and Internet Explorer mode, which you are using whether you want to or not. I mean, you may not be using Edge as a browser. There are three guys apparently who are using Edge as a browser, and one of them is being paid to use it. But basically, it is part of Windows, right? So this is there, and if they successfully use the flaw, it can allow the theft of the NTLM version 2 hashes, which can then be used to authenticate that machine as you using a pass the hash attack. So Microsoft said, quote, minimal interaction with a malicious file by using a user such as selecting it, single click, inspecting it, right click, or performing an action other than opening or executing could trigger the vulnerability. Now, BlueSky found this flaw and reported it to Microsoft back in June and said they had observed this being exploited in the wild in attacks on Ukrainian entities. The attacks in this case were delivered in an email that showed a Ukrainian government server and asked the recipient to renew their academic certificates. I mean, I get those all the time. The emails directed the victims to a malicious zip file, which is downloaded from apparently an official government site. So there's multi-part hack. The archive had a PDF and a URL file contained inside of it. If you touch this URL, it's like a poison dart frog, and you touch it, you're done. It basically immediately retrieves 2 executables and is designed to exploit this 0 day. So if the user right-click, delete it, or moved, drag and drop it even, it triggers it. So once it's on your machine, you got a big problem. Now, it'd be interesting to see ways around that. But BlueSky says this is in Windows 7, 8, 8.1, but it's very hard to use there and is much more exploitable on Windows 10 and 11. It's quite an interesting thing. And it's probably something you should be aware of, because if the Russians are using it and it's been published, then guess what? Other people are going to start using it too. So be warned. All right, something else. Bitdefender has released a decryptor for Shrinklocker, which uses Windows BitLocker encryption to lock up your files. So Shrinklocker is pretty well known. Shrinklocker was first sort of documented way back in May of this year, and it was found by Kaspersky. It's a pretty simple tool. Although that's what my recommendation letter from a professor said, and look how much damage I caused. Shrinklocker appears to have been repurposed from some old VB script code that's pretty old, And now, despite being called simple, which was one description, low-skilled attackers, the operators of Shrinklocker have been successfully running attacks on corporate targets. I mean, just because it's simple and old doesn't mean it don't work. Like me, for example. But I mean, they're basically, it's the equivalent of a guy robbing a liquor store in Astoria on camera. But hey, liquor stores get robbed all the time, right? And sometimes the guys get caught, and sometimes they don't. There were two idiots that were putting skimmers on ATM machines in Rhode Island. And, like every single one of them, you can see the guys plain as day, like trying to mess with it. And, their mugshots are pretty funny. But they did issue a free tool that will help you recover all the files if you do get targeted by Shrinklocker. And one of the reasons I put the story up was because I think maybe one of your things you might want to think about is how to build a search protocol into your response plan so that you've got a way to look and see if there are decryptors available before something happens. And, you've sort of got a mechanism and you've got a feel for where to look and, how to find out, is there a decryptor before you need it, and build that into your response protocol. I think that would be a good idea because, it's just like knowing where the fire exit is. It's like before the fire starts, it's really a good idea to know where the fire exits are. That's why they tell you to do that in theaters and you didn't pay attention. And then there's smoke and fire and everybody screaming and all that. Yeah. All right. Now I've seen an uptick in this myself, and I did get offered a job yesterday that claimed to pay, it said $300 to $2,000 per hour. Work from home. It even said, if your work is great, we'll hire you full time. I'm like, well, I guess at $2,000 an hour, I'd be willing to work full time, huh? I mean, I'm worth it, but that's a pretty wide range, right? For just like working from home with not many details. Yeah. Well, this is basically apparently TA-455, which is an Iranian attack group. And the campaign is called Iranian Dream Job Campaign. Now, the campaign primarily, at least at this point, has been targeting the aerospace industry, offering fake jobs, according to BlueSky cybersecurity. And there was 2 stories with them this week. The attack, and it's sort of your usual spear phishing attack, but the attack delivers snail resin malware, which then uses SlugResin as a backdoor. So this is a package, and these charmingly named products were produced by Charming Kitten, another well-known Iranian group. Although sometimes they said they found files that belong to Lazarus from North Korea, and I'm like, bad guys working together? Say it isn't so. But the article says that the industry-specific job theme attacks are sort of a demonstration of a new AI approach to really, really, hone these spear phishing attacks to target specific market or employment industry sectors, and that this was an example of that, which makes it much more economical for these groups to target specific things. So spear phishing. And of course, the more details they put in these things, like the one I got was so vague, it obviously looks fake. Telling me we could pay you from $300 up to $2,000 an hour. I'm like, yeah, right. Like you bet. I bet you're paying $2,000 an hour. I know there's people that make that kind of money, but come on. And even if they were going to pay that, they're not going to tell you that up front. It was a stupid, vague ad. But when they get really specific, and I think they're working on getting the AI down to being able to target you specifically. Like, hey, Doug, would you like this low work, high pay job at the, University of Southern California? Like here's the department information and the job description, so they can try to get it really specific like that. So regardless of your industry, remind all your people that job offer they're about to click on because they really hate working for you, and they're going to click on that thing that says they're going to make $1,500 an hour. Yeah, you might want to give them some tips on how to vet that stuff before they end up downloading something really bad. But I admit $2,000 an hour. I could pay all my bar bills and cigar bills, but really, come on. More realistically, is that guy Dave who called me and asked if I'd be willing to come over and help him secure his whole network. And he couldn't really afford to pay anything, but he figured I love working with this stuff and could bring some students with me, and we could just have a field day fixing up his network, and he wouldn't hold me responsible if it didn't work out. Like, right. He was willing to take me out on his yacht sometimes as thanks, but he just couldn't afford to pay anything. So yeah, I love those. I couldn't resist this one. And even if you're not in academia, this still applies. I'm telling you. I always tell students and clients that, nothing matters until it does, which sounds very glib. but it's not. It's not. They give me the blank stare, like, "Oh yeah, I'm paying you $2,000 an hour for that comment." But I mean, look, when you're working on that little app that detects ghosts in the room, so what? It's boring, it's stupid, but then all of a sudden it's the next Angry Birds. It matters. That's what I mean by it doesn't matter until it does. I mean, that's when the lawyers show up, right? They go, "Oh, we like your game. Huh, we realized that you've done this." That's when that license agreement you didn't read actually matters. Now, in this article, it was about an academic journal that's published by Elsevier. I don't know how to say it, but it's a very common publication source. It's an academic journal. They had to retract 2 papers because the authors used unlicensed software in their work. Now, the authors used a product called Flow 3D to model dam failures, and the company, Flow Science, saw the article, I guess, got angry and complained about it because they were like, "Hey, these guys don't have a license for our very expensive software." So, whether you're an academic or a hobbyist or a student or at a company even, when you're working on something, a lot of times academics and students and hobbyists and so forth take the attitude, well, I'm a poorly paid, professor. I can use this commercial product for free. I remember taking classes where they had literally backed, they had cracked the license or they were using wares. And I literally took a graduate class where they were using wares because I guess the university wouldn't pay for the software. Yeah, the person who's doing that's dead, so they can't be prosecuted. But students do this all the time. I mean, so, and if you're just simulating something in your basement, so what? But then it becomes something, right? And the next thing you know, the Winklevoss twins are on the phone with attorneys. So if you're starting to develop something, read those licenses. It's boring, but you will thank me later when you're selling your product to Cisco for $7 billion and getting ready to send me my 10% cut because I warned you about this, and you aren't being sued by 35 different people whose licenses you violated. I mean, this can also turn into an intellectual property law thing, and just to mention that, remember, if you write code on a lot of university machines that you don't own or work machines that you don't own, company machines, whatever, and so forth, your employer may well own all the code. I mean, who am I anyway? Arthur Fry? I mean, if you don't know who Arthur Fry is, he invented Post-it notes at 3M and just got his usual annual salary and not one dime from 3M. Now, he knew that going in, but I'm just telling you right now, I've seen this happen. So be warned. BlueSky is an alternative to X, which used to be called Twitter, and it has recently been one of the most downloaded apps on Apple. As a lot of social media users got tired of the X environment since it's basically turned into 4chan at this point. But on Thursday, notifications and feeds were not loading for some people, and BlueSky said that one of their internet providers had some downtime, quote, due to a fiber cable being out. BlueSky provided a status notice from Cogent Communications that said that some customers in the Raleigh-Durham, North Carolina, and Richmond, Virginia areas had lost connectivity. They said 2.25 new users had joined BlueSky in the last week or so, and that 1 million users had joined in just 24 hours. BlueSky was started by Jack Dorsey, who was one of the co-founders of the original Twitter before it was bought by certain parties. So, this is an up-and-coming thing. You may want to check it out or maybe not. You may like X. It just depends. It's all up to you. Well, whether he's dancing the tango in Buenos Aires, diving in Aruba, or passed out in an alley off Fremont Street, he always looks like, in the alley, he kind of looked dead. But in that diving thing with all the nudity, let's just say we aren't welcome in Aruba any longer. But regardless of all that, he is the next best thing to Bond, James Bond. He's Aaran Leyland. Hi, Aaron.
Hey, you just reminded me of something. When I was like 10 years old, making my cousin 14, he had a Skid Row t-shirt. And in the Skid Row t-shirt, it was a person with their pants around their legs in an alley in Skid Row. And his family are all very, very Catholic. And wow, did that cause some fights.
Almost like a Hack Naked shirt.
Oh, yeah. Well, at least Exodus, man. Should I put my Hack Naked shirt on?
Oh,
actually,
God,
talking about shirts, actually, J-Frog sent me this T-shirt, and they told me it was because they think I'm a 10. And then I won't show you now, but the back of it says I'm a 10, but it's my CVSS score. So
if anybody's a CVSS 10, it's probably you.
What are they trying to say there? It's like,
Well, I'll call you 9.9. Tyler Robinson's a 10.
Well, yeah, Tyler Robinson's a 10.
You always have to be slightly below that threshold, in my opinion. But you're up there, let me tell you.
Well, you're normally with me when I'm causing badness, so both of us are wrong. Okay, so on that bombshell, in today's professional commentary, 5 ways to catch AI in its lies and fact check its outputs for your research. Okay, this article is an absolute smorgasbord of related articles from David and the team at ZDNet, or however you pronounce that, which had me fall so many hours today into a rabbit hole. Don't tell my boss. I know he doesn't listen to this anyway. Although I believe everything's a simulation, and I don't know whether it was higher powers want me to think this. Anyway, what is free thought and all that? But hey, enough of my grade school philosophy for the day. Right. So David tells us that if you're using AI for research, listen, students and other people, follow these 5 best practices to cheat your tutors. It doesn't say that, but that's just what I thought. To cheat Dr. Doug. If anybody listens from Dr. Doug's class, don't use this to cheat Dr. Doug. But no, it's about making it a more accurate chatbot for your results every time. Okay, loads of me talking here as David, and I won't try and do the accent as last week because I got in trouble. Anyway, right. Number 1, ask for references and sources. Right, David's voice. I don't even know what David sounds like. Fortunately, ChatGPT is getting better at citing sources, particularly with the GPT 4.0 LLM. And the web search capability in what he calls the £20 a month version. He says, but ChatGPT won't always volunteer those sources. So if you're doing research, always ask for sources. Then he goes on to say, test the sources and make sure they factually exist. He says numerous times in his experience, ChatGPT cited sources that seemed absolutely perfect for what he was looking for. The only problem was that after he clicked through it and searched for the name by title, that the source just didn't exist and had been made up. He says that ChatGPT even chose real academic journals, made up author names, and then assigned compelling sounding titles to the article. And he goes on to say, can you imagine how bad it would be if he had cited them in his work without double checking? Dr. Doug would have known. So he says he shudders to think. He says to ask for sources, check those sources and call out the AI. And if it gives you a made up answer, I don't know, what do? Just say you're lying. Have a fight it. Ugh. Okay, number 2, tell the AI to show your work. He says, I'm going to speak in first person. Early in my exploration of ChatGPT, I asked the tool to find me a local mechanic. I sent it to Yelp and Google reviews to do analysis on the comments. At the time, it reached into those sites and gave me useful information. I tried to test again recently and received another set of mechanic rankings. What he's saying here is just check and double check. It lied to him. The tool never looked at Yelp or Google reviews, and he goes on to say that this is likely because, including their site, have become more restrictive in letting AIs to scrape their content. And he said that's fine, but his argument is the AI should have come back and said it couldn't check Yelp or Google reviews instead. And he says it's a liar, fence on fire. That made me laugh. But yeah, why doesn't it just go back and say, look, I'm making shit up now? It's like them people that just have to tell you stuff like that's not true just because. Anyway, okay, them people. Okay, there's lots more detail in the article, and you should definitely Doug, everybody, someone in Pulse Security Weekly should definitely get David on one of the shows. He seems cool. So, number 3, cross-validate an AI's responses across related questions. So this process lets you and the AI explore a topic in depth to see if the chatbot's answers remain logically consistent and contextually relevant. He says we use this approach a lot in traditional research and engineering to help make sure we're on the right track. It can be applied to AI as well. So that's cool, isn't it? He does say at the end of that bit that because ChatGPT retains its knowledge while in a session, the more you ask, the deeper you dive into a specific topic, the more you train the AI to stay in with the context of the sphere of knowledge you're looking at. And he says this approach helps keep the AI from going off on its own and increases the chances of getting accurate answers. Who knew the AI was such a liar? Number 4, ask about recent events or time-sensitive information. He says many chatbots have knowledge-based cutoff. Free version of ChatGPT, October 23. ChatGPT Plus, also October 23. But it can access the web, as we know, and this ability can result in substantially more accurate information. The free one can also access the web, but more limited. So you get what you pay for there, right? Okay, the last point, number 5, ask follow-up questions and iteratively refine your query. I do this all the time. This is great. He says he uses the approach to get ChatGPT to help him with his programming. He starts with a simple query and refine and clarify it until he gets some basic code. Once that approach works, he adds another sentence or detail for what he wants in his code. And then after, he says a bunch of interactions that feel more like a coding session than a conversation. He says he gets some useful code. So he says, even if you're not coding, you can use this approach on projects for cloud services. You might ask AI, can you explain the different types of cloud services? So build up context. That is only the highlights of that article. It also had 6 or 7 references to some other really fun articles, which I totally got lost in. And weirdly, most of them were published on the same day. Interesting. So anyway, some added value, because I love LLMs. 8 ways to reduce ChatGPT hallucinations. We talk about this all the time. Avoid ambiguity and vagueness. Avoid merging unrelated concepts. Avoid describing impossible scenarios. That's literally all I asked ChatGPT for. Avoid using fictional or fantastical entities. Avoid contradicting known facts. Haven't you got a prime minister, a president like that? I'm sure our prime minister's totally the same. Avoid misusing scientific terms. Avoid blending different realities, and avoid assigning uncharacteristic properties. Okay, finally, to me, there's a part in the article which references about people keeping their use of these tools a secret from their bosses. In my humble opinion, there is nothing to be scared of here. Although, if you are the type of person that cuts and pastes answers without sanity checking them into your work, yes, be afraid. But if, like me, you use it as an accelerator to build frameworks, to brainstorm, and maybe soften your normal pragmatic language in business emails, then be proud of it and teach people how to use it. It's a force multiplier. Okay. Back to the guy I dream of being when I'm hallucinating. Dr. Doug in the home studio, in an island no less. Every man is an island. Peace out, party people.
Yay. Thank you, Aaron. All great advice. I know that, also to students, be warned that people are looking for this kind of stuff, and you can basically end up getting expelled from your institution if people catch you with stuff that makes it obvious that you used an AI to generate your essay, your programming assignment, or whatever. And when the AI starts hallucinating and you have no idea that citation that they put in there is a fake, that's going to be the way they prove it. And when they can prove it, you're toast. Because believe me, I've served on that committee quite a few times at different institutions, and I was well known as the hanging judge, but I'm not very merciful, and if you get caught cheating, you're pretty much persona non grata in my book. Of course, if you're somebody who cheats in your programming assignments, you probably don't know what persona non grata means because you probably cheated in Latin class too. But regardless, thank you, Aaron. I have pretended to do this last story and acted like I was an old person. Guess what? I'm an old person. But I was acting like I was a really old person. I was actually pretending to be my dad when he needed help with his computer and talked to scammers. Where is the any key? No, I don't know. And they're telling you to type stuff, and you're like, oh no, hang on a second here. It doesn't seem to be working. I'm confused. What should I do now? Oh, I've rebooted it. Yeah, that kind of thing. Well, anyway, Daisy is an AI that has been put up on O2, which is the largest mobile carrier in the United Kingdom. And Daisy is a chat bot that basically whiles away its time in the virtual old folks' home talking to scammers and wasting their time. Daisy basically automates what they call scam baiting, which I guess I didn't know there was a name for it. And if I'd known I was scam baiting, I probably would not have told anybody, or because they might have misheard that. But to waste, you're trying to waste as much of their time as possible, since every minute they spend talking to old Gil, that was my persona, they aren't talking to your grandmother and getting that money you might have inherited someday. The chatbot takes them down the primrose path and will even provide fake personal information like bank details when they ask. And they said that Daisy was able to keep some of the scammers on the phone for more than 40 minutes and speaks very slowly, dear. I love it. It sounds like something I would bill. Like, well, I don't know if my grandson is in jail in Botswana land, but I'd sure like to help you there. You sound like a nice fellow. Let me read you my bank number here to help out. 1-8-9-1. Wait, I dropped my pen. Oh no, I spilled coffee all over my pants. Can you hold on for just 1 minute? And they get really mad and start swearing at you and calling you names. And I guess they think that they can intimidate you because they don't get mad and hang up. They get mad and start going, "Hey, old man, get with it, get with the program," and you're like, yeah, but it's really fun. But anyway, chatbot, and that's the news. Thanks, Aaron, and we'll see you next time on the Secure